Feel free to expect Ashley.
What's the
Are we expecting Ashley?
We are not,
Okay, great.
so I think the gang's all here. Okay, we can go for
I'm
it.
Alan.
Nice to meet you. I'm Kelly.
We will go ahead and get started. We'll start with our roll call and a quick welcome. Gretchen, do you want to start us off since you're on the far end of?
I would be happy to. It's nice to see everyone. My name is Gretchen Bennett and I'm the city's community services director. Nice to see you.
I'm Celine Coleman. I'm the vice chair of the police review board.
Jeff Jorgensen, I'm a member of the Police Review Board. I'm Greg Yoder, I'm the chair of the Police Review Board. Zane Goldberg, I'm a member of the Police Review Board.
I'm Alan Coleman. I guess I'm what the complainant.
You're a guest.
The guest, I'm the guest.
Kelly Rusk, member of the police review.
Scott McLean, alternate member of the Police Review.
Steve Gillen, a lieutenant with the Salem Police Department. Chris Meyer with City Manager's Office.
Nathan Garrettson, Assistant City Attorney, Legal Counsel for the board.
Thank you. Before we start, I do want to read the purpose of our board. Mission is the Community Police Review Board is to provide the Salem community with an objective, unbiased, citizen-based, accessible process for the review and complaints against the police department and police officers, and to provide Salem community with information regarding the accountability of its police department in a way that builds trust and enhances communication between police and all members of the community. To this end, the board advocates for fairness, respect for all individuals, accountability of public employees, equal access to this forum, and open communication of concerns. The purpose of this hearing this evening is to review the complaint initially filed with Salem Police Department as Internal Affairs Case 25 INF-0006. We'll call to order the hearing today. It is 6:03 on February 10th. Sorry, I'm a little out of time right now. I don't know my dates right now. On February 10th. I'd like to ask if the complainant is present.
I'm here.
Excellent, thank you. Part of the mission of our Community Police Review Board is to provide an objective, community-based, accessible process for the review of complaints involving the Salem Police Department. The board serves an advisory role for the city manager of the city of Salem, and reports its findings from the review to unresolved complaints to the city manager. The board may also make recommendations to the city manager for remediation, request the city manager to employ an independent investigator or auditor in appropriate circumstances, and refer to city manager's concerns, questions about the police department policies, procedures, complaint history, or training issues. Recommendation of the board is non-binding. The final decision pertaining to the disciplinary matter of responsibility for operation for the direction of the police department remains with the city manager, the chief of police, and the police management team. The purpose of this hearing is to receive statements and testimony, to review evidence that will aid the board in deliberations and reporting the board's findings and recommendations to the city manager. The board shall receive testimony from both parties. The board and individual board members may ask questions of the witness. Only board members may ask questions of the witness. After hearing statements from both parties and all witnesses, the board will deliberate its determination in a closed executive session. The board is limited to deciding whether it concurs with the police department's internal investigations of an issue or whether it disagrees with the department's findings. After making that determination, the board will reconvene and announce publicly its findings. The board's findings shall be determined by a majority vote. The board is required to produce an initial report within 30 days of the hearing, which will be reviewed by the chief of police. Unless additional review is needed, that report shall become final 30 days after the initial report is produced. The final report will be provided to the complainant, the officers involved, and the city council. The final report will also be presented at our board's next meeting. The complainant will be notified with the final report, will be read, and may attend that meeting in which the report is presented. No comment will be allowed on the completed complaint review, and there is no formal appeal process to our decision. This hearing is to be conducted in an informal, non-confrontational manner, free of harassment, coercion, intimidation, or undue interruption. The board reserves its right to remove any participant who fails to exercise restraint and respect, who becomes hostile or disorderly, or who creates a hostile environment. The board may also postpone or cancel this hearing if participants fail to exhibit orderly and respectful conduct. The statements of the complainant to the witnesses are voluntary. The board will listen to the statements that bear upon the complaint, which the board considers material, reliable, and relevant. The board may limit statements at its discretion. Any substantive new information given which was not evaluated by the department in investigation shall be referred to the police department for further investigation. In the event of such new information, the board may elect to continue or postpone the hearing. Prior to receiving any testimony, we will go around the room to have each party in attendance introduce him or herself and state his or her relationship to the case. We've actually already gone through that part, so we won't do that now. We will now examine the complaint, a summary of the police department's internal findings, internal investigation, and the request for review. Except for the complaint, the involved officers and the representatives, any witness in attendance will be asked to leave during the testimony of other witnesses. Once the testimony of all witnesses is complete, the witnesses will be allowed to remain during public proceedings. So now we want to read the complaint and the summary, which I also have. Does anyone else have those papers as well?
I have extra copies if that's helpful.
I would appreciate if we could share the load for reading these. If anyone has any will to read the papers, they can pass it on.
So I brought my glasses, Grant.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, so down. Okay.
I can do it, but which section are we reading? Just the letters submitted by.
Let's start with the attached letter. Yes. Okay, so we have this letter from Mr. Poland.
Oh, yes.
That's undated, but I'll just read it aloud. Hello, City of Salem Community Police Board Review Board members. My reason for writing today is to share an ongoing issue I have with the Salem PD. On September 5th, 2025 at 9:30 in the morning, I was walking on a paved path that runs between Salem PD, the Salem PD building, and Mill Creek between Commercial Street and Liberty Street. Suddenly, I heard a noise and at that moment, motorcycle officer blank redacted rode by me on the left. Keep in mind that this is a 1200cc BMW with all of its gear on it. At no time did he have any emergency lights on, nor did he give me a honk or any verbal warnings as he was approaching from the rear. After he passed me, he ignored my hand waving gestures. No, I did not give him the finger. Frankly, I was too surprised, startled, and frazzled by the fact that if I had shifted to the left or him to the right for any reason, he would have run me down. He proceeded on the path into the police parking lot with no acknowledgement of my request for him to stop. I walked into the SPD 10 minutes after the incident and made an oral complaint to Lieutenant Redacted. Since that morning, I have had numerous phone and in-person conversations with a sergeant, three lieutenants, as well as a few non-police employees. All of these conversations are being FOIA requested. If need be, we can discuss or listen to these conversations as well. My only request, other than disciplining the cop, was to talk with Trevor Womack, the chief of police, to confirm he was aware of the incident. The consequence. September 9th, 2 business days after the incident, I received an email from Lieutenant Blank stating, quote, I have determined that no police violations were committed by Officer Redacted, unquote. I continued talking with Lieutenant Redacted in person and on the phone. On the morning of September 25th, I received an email from Lieutenant Steve Redacted stating, quote, you are trespassed from the Salem Police Department if your purpose is to discuss the investigation in case number 25 INF-0006, unquote. I know I'm close to the matter, but to have an SPD motorcycle cop nearly run me down is one thing, then to be threatened with trespass and arrest for speaking. They are telling me I'm not permitted to redress my grievances with my government in a peaceful manner and in a public forum sounds like a violation of 3 constitutional rights guaranteed in the First Amendment. At this point, I'm requesting the trespass be revoked and an appointment with Chief Womack confirming he is aware of the incident and confirming Officer Redacted has been disciplined or terminated. Thank you, Alan Poland. Thank you, Drew. Would someone like to read the investigative memo?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that just on the next page?
Which one findings here, Gretchen? Do we have it? I might want to.
Finding them.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
On September 9th, 2025, a memo was issued to Mr. Alan Cullen from the Salem Police Department. It states, I'm writing to inform you that I have completed my investigation regarding your complaint against Officer Redacted. You alleged that Officer Redacted lacked the authority to ride his police motorcycle on a sidewalk without notification, which can lead to put you in danger. I have reviewed all available video footage of the incident along with the subsequent conversations you've had with Lieutenant Redacted and Sergeant Redacted. Based on my investigation, I've determined that no policy violations were committed by Officer Redacted, Sergeant Redacted, or Lieutenant Redacted. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me by telephone at 503-588-6155 or in person at the Salem Police Department, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sincerely Redacted, Salem Police Department.
All right, we will now excuse our witnesses, but all of our complainants stay, we are with us.
We don't actually have any witnesses
All right,
today, so.
excellent. I know that you did touch the case a little bit. Does that help at all for this process? We know?
I believe Lieutenant Galvin's gonna be the person presenting on behalf of the officer.
So within Lieutenant Galvin leave during the first,
No, actually, Mr. Cullen is able to stay during the police and the
Okay.
police during Mr. Cullen, but they're not to ask questions of each
Okay, thank
other. Yeah, and we've gone over that. The questions should be from the board to each party.
great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Colin, I'd like to please go ahead and share with the board, but first, do you agree that your statements will be true and honest?
Yes.
All right, you may proceed with your testimony.
Reference standard set, you guys, anybody care?
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine, okay. First, thank you all for taking the time out of your evening to be here, especially with the baby at home. Or maybe it's a way to get away. I appreciate it, the opportunity to speak regarding this. Again, I appreciate that. So I really don't have my statement pretty well summarized most of it. The only thing that I would like to do is read from this document. I think you'll recognize it when I start reading it. And it's one sentence, so it's not a long drawn out thing. Congress shall not, or excuse me, I'm a little nervous. Bear with me for a second. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibit the free exercise thereof or abridge the freedom of speech or of the press or the right to the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for the redress of grievances. I think we all recognize that as the First Amendment to the Constitution, which this is an accurate reproduction of that. So that's really, I mean, part of the reason I bring that up is this has escalated from just being a simple matter of what I perceive a motorcycle cop making a poor decision. The piece of property that we're talking about is a sidewalk. At this particular point, I believe it's about 7 or 8 feet wide. I make up almost a quarter of that walking down through it. But again, the biggest issue with this is the motorcycle cop came up behind me, so he's overtaking me. There's the city noises, the creek noises, plus just my head and going for a walk, which I do 2 or 3 times a week when I'm in town. But again, no audible warning that he was coming. I've been passed on that same path by bicycles where they always will acknowledge, on your left, whatever it might be. And then, as I say, again, he didn't make any effort when I was motioning him to stop, so I could at least say, hey, what's up? So that's the first piece of it that kind of speaks for itself. The one thing I would ask is, in considering these, look at it, and I've talked with some folks with it, and assume it isn't Alan. It's your father, it's your grandpa, if that's appropriate, at 69 years old. So again, that's that piece of it speaks for itself. The bigger picture is, in essence, what's happened since then. Is yes, I've gone into the police department. Lieutenant Galvin and I have spoken several times, both on the phone and in person and so on, with an effort to get something that actually communicates that the officer, am I not allowed to say his name?
We'll just keep it as the officer for the sake of that.
Right. The most I've gotten is he's been talked to. Which is something I would expect out of my granddaughters, sixth grade teacher, in terms of we gotta protect them. Everybody's adults. Okay? So that's a piece of it. As a person who was in that position, I think I have a little bit more of a right to know exactly what that entails. Was there a note put in the file so that if he does this again, there's a pattern of activity there. Personally, I thought he should be either terminated or have time off the motorcycle because it puts people in jeopardy. One of the things, and there was a lot of material that you guys had received that Gretchen had sent out electronically. One of the things in going through and reading all of those, one of the things that's consistent is everybody that's got material that's in it has stated my statement has never changed. I'm not embellishing, I'm not changing to where all of a sudden, he stuck his elbow out or anything else. It's truthful, and again, it's never changed, which I know in these types of situations, that's one of the things that indicates people are lying is when all of a sudden their story changes and it gets modified or whatever. The other piece that's concerning with this is, I believe Gretchen got video from the cameras, both the body camera, which is in the material that was sent to you, showing him riding his bike, and me. But miraculously, there's one camera that would have given a one-dimensional image of him riding his bike behind me. It's just one dimension, it is. The particular camera that would have essence given it a two-dimensional so that they could have seen from a different angle as he was passing. It's the Epstein moment, I call it. That footage, that camera was inoperable at that time. So that makes me question why. If everything else was working fine, I don't know how many cameras that included. Why was that one not working? The other thing that is a bit of and this might be a little bit of a side venture here, but since this happened, ironically, the Oregon Department of Revenue is auditing me. I don't know how close the Salem Police Department is. I know geographically, the Department of Revenue is just up the street. Was that retaliation? Okay. The way to prove it is nobody's going to say, yes, we did this for obvious reasons. That's a really big coincidence. Oh, and one of the other issues, again, in reading through the material, not my statement, but the statement of all the people who were reports and those types of things are in there, including motorcycle officer. Even he said, yeah, I probably should have done something different. I won't go on that path anymore. To me, that's an admission of guilt. Okay? And it's in his words, not mine. The chief's, I don't know what her title is, assistant, one of the ones that wrote another piece, also said that this wasn't a good idea. Virtually everybody that had anything to say about it said it wasn't a good idea, shouldn't have done it. Because again, and the one that stood out to me was another of the lieutenants, Mr. Galvin. But he said on a couple occasions, well, if you'd have been hit and injured, then you'd have a case. So, and I think at one point he said, it's too bad you didn't get hit because then you'd have a case because you'd have damages. And I've been involved enough in the legal system. I know you can't sue. You can sue for nothing, but the reality is typically you got to be damaged and recover your damages. But I found it odd that someone in the police department said, well, gosh, you'd have been hit, you'd been able to sue and get damages. As in, if negligence isn't an issue, that should be it. Just restating it. And as I say, it's pretty, the other issue, the reason I read the First Amendment, and I find shocking, and I'm not sure if I address anybody on the board, to have your words trespassed. when we're supposed to be able to redress our grievances with our government. To be told you cannot speak of this in this building. If you do, you'll be arrested for trespass. So, and I do it in a public forum, can't get much more of a public forum as far as what the taxpayers are paying for than the city police department. I was doing it in a peaceful manner. I wasn't going in and screaming, shouting, demanding anything else. When I would address someone at the police department as far as behind the glass, normally it was to ask for a form, it was to ask a question, it would be to ask for an appointment, perhaps with the chief of police. But it was respectful and it was minimal. And yes, there were times when I somewhat just hung around, hoping that perhaps the chief may finally decide he'll go on a break. And oh, by the way, introduce himself and we have a few minutes to talk. Because that's really all I'm asking for, is just to have accountability from the chief of police, simply stating I'm aware of what happened. The officer in question has been disciplined, even if it's orally. Okay. I mean, to say he's had a talking to, really minimizes it. You can be given a verbal, basically searching for the word, punishment, I don't know what the word is, but to basically acknowledge you did something wrong. So, and then it would be nice to get an apology for somebody. I've been told repeatedly, Salem PD does not apologize. And if they do something wrong, they do not apologize. I've asked for the officer, and it took a long time to find out who he was and his full name and badge number. I've asked that, could he possibly give me a call and we could talk about it? And I've been told, no, we don't do that. So, anyway, that pretty much summarizes everything I had. I didn't want to spend a bunch of time babbling on any more than I have. So, that's my statement. If anybody has any questions, I would be very happy to answer them and entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Coleman?
Coleman, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Mr. Coleman, how many times do you think you went to the police station?
8 to 10, maybe 12.
And what, like from when to when, if you can recall?
From the date that it occurred, because I went instantly into the police office. That was in September. Right now, what was that? So that was in September. There were probably 5 or 6 times in September and October. I was gone. I was out of town. I was in Washington, D.C. Canada. Through most of, thank you, the latter half of November, all of December, and just got back shortly thereafter. And then again, I was gone most of January and February, so I wasn't even in town. I imagine Steve will be able to give you the exact head count of those days. And some of it was addressing other things. One time I went in requesting a ride along. So it wasn't relative to this. Went in and asked, I'd like to have a tour of the building if I could.
Okay, so then I guess let me rephrase that. Relative to this, how many times do you think you went to the police station between when and when?
Again, probably 6 to 10 times.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, that could be plus or minus a little bit. I wasn't keeping a log.
Did you get a rental?
No, I was denied.
When did you get information that you were trespassed from the police station?
It goes back to one of the letters, but it was relatively shortly after the event of it. If you want, I can look and see.
If you remember.
And again, I'm sure Steve will have that date.
Supporting in September.
Yeah.
Okay. And it had been discussed in the phone conversation prior to that, where he actually told me I was trespassed. And I'd asked for a written trespass so that way, again, I would know what the terms and the conditions and so on were. Which initially he refused to give me. He said, I don't have to. So exactly. And it wasn't until I called Internal Affairs. And then within a day or two after me talking to Internal Affairs, Lieutenant Galvin sent a written copy of the trespass. And since then, I've got a total of three times he's written me to tell me I've been trespassed. Relative to my words, I'm still welcome to come in if I have new issues, but I cannot talk about this case without fear of arrest.
Did those 3 writings come because you came back to the police station?
I'm not sure what it came. You'd have to ask the author.
Between the first written notice of trespass, the third, you hadn't returned to Salem at that time.
I had returned, but I did not talk about this case, which is what the trespass was related to, specifically the case. Again, I'm not trespassing from the building. That's why this, it talks about the freedom of speech. I don't know how much more of a grievance there could be than to say you can come in here, but you may not speak on this topic.
Just for my clarity, our board is limited to reviewing the results of the investigator investigation. Was the information matter trespass also part of that initial complaint to the internal affair or to the professional standards unit?
I believe it was covered in the letter that was read.
Prior to this incident, had you ever had any interaction with Salem?
I don't know that I've ever had a ticket as far as a moving violation involving Salem PD here for years. There have been a couple of occasions, prior to this, 2 days prior, I basically saw a motorcycle cop sitting alongside the road on a driveway doing most likely a cell phone and seatbelt check, so they pull out behind people. So I sat and watched him. And again, it was probably from 50 feet plus away. I was in the middle of a parking lot. He was at the curb. And then he would leave with his lights on to go stop somebody. On 2 occasions, I then left, parked across the street or whatever, and just observed what he was doing. I didn't interfere. I didn't holler. I didn't do anything else with it. And one of my questions was, originally when I talked to Lieutenant Sergeant Berg, I had asked if there was any way to get the information relative to if that was the same motorcycle cop that was the one that actually did the ride by on the path. And I never was able to get that information. So I didn't know if it was retaliation. Again, retaliation kind of keeps flowing through this. I don't mean to be paranoid.
I'm not trying to do a gotcha, but did you, and look, reviewing the materials, did you have some complaint previously about like loud noises or something coming from the station?
Yes, when they built, it was when they were deconstructing the old Delon Oldsmobile facility. That building was built probably in the 40s or 50s. Back then, concrete was cheap, so there was a lot of concrete and foundations and the tall walls. And Salem PD, after the buildings had pretty much been removed, they were, come to find out after the fact, but they had their SWAT team out and they were blowing holes through walls in order to practice, penetrating into an area like that. So it was being used for training. The only problem is they had not notified anybody. And my office is right on the other side of Mill Creek. So I'm maybe 100 yards away, if that. And they were using large enough amount of dynamite or whatever explosive it was to blow holes through walls that men could go through. Now, whether they crawled or walked, I don't know. But coincidentally, a bit of a sidebar with that, part of the reason it really affected me. You guys remember a few years ago when there was in Hawaii, something came over the television, the radio and things, that there was a missile inbound. Okay, guess where I was? I was in Hawaii. Okay, so I lived through those out. I think it was about an hour and a half, believe it or not, from the time they announced that there's a missile inbound until they retracted that. Okay, I come back 3 or 4 days later, and one of the first things I hear is an explosion loud enough that it shook my office. And I went over there and said, "What's going on? Why are you doing this?" And I wasn't pleasant. You may have recognized I can probably be a little bit outspoken. Then I've got the same attitude, which we're the police, we can do whatever. We own this property. So I had a few words with them that, again, if you want me to recite some of it, I can. But the bottom line is apparently I made enough of an impact because they said, what do you want us to do? I said, the least you can do is go tell your neighbors. You know, you're going to set off explosives that are the same caliber of a military device, and you're running around in SWAT uniforms. We don't know what you're doing. We don't know if something's wrong here, that some terrorist or somebody else has set off the bomb and you're here in full regalia or what. So the consequence is, before they did it, the next time they did come around and give everybody a letter and chat with them to make sure that it was communicated. And that's some of the stuff I want to do here. I don't necessarily, I'm not asking for any money. I'm not asking for any damages. I'm not asking for anything other than have a little respect for the citizens. Don't ride up behind them, with this attitude, we're the police. Okay, we can do this. And they made up an excuse that, yeah, we were checking the homeless sites there. And there's only one homeless place, and it's not, it's not a regular gathering for the homeless because it's right on the edge of the creek. Right now it's underwater. So at that time it was September, so it wasn't, but still there might be one or two gentlemen down there occasionally. So, but it's not a drug den. It's not a place where they generally set fires and so on. So, but thank you.
Does the board have any more questions? Okay, all right, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for the water.
All right, and at this point, we'll move on to the Police Department. I believe you're thinking how they'll be speaking on behalf of the department. Is that correct?
Yes,
And do you agree that your statement speak true and honest?
yes.
You may proceed with a summary.
I do have the PowerPoint's already up there and as I assume that you have all looked at the material. Today. So I'm just gonna hit a few high points.
Just to be clear real quick, the only material I wasn't able to find the outside cameras and be able to watch this on my computer.
Is that consistent with you nodding your head? I don't know if
I did not.
Sorry.
It's because of the smart client player being like unique to PCs. I just couldn't know that.
Okay, we can, if the board would like, we can review that now.
We can come back to that after your statement.
Okay, I do have some screenshots of it, if that will help. So, yes, this is Professional Standards Investigation 25-INF 006. Is that what it's?
Yes.
Okay, so that's just our how we track complaints and investigations. So, the complaint was on, as we've heard, September 5th, 2025, Mr. Cullen alleged that Officer Hardy lacked the authority to ride a police motorcycle on the sidewalk without notification, thus placing Mr. Cullen. This is a picture of the specific area. If you look at the sidewalk to the north, that is the sidewalk that we're talking about, right there where the cursor is. Slide. So this would be our policy that would be covered under this. It's policy 703. It's use of vehicles. Members shall always exercise due regard for the safety of all persons while operating any city vehicle. So if there was a violation of policy, this would be where the policy fit into. So action taken, Lieutenant Bidro spoke with Officer Hardy and learned that he was checking the area for unsheltered camps along the creek. Officer Hardy acknowledged he could have checked the area differently rather than riding his motorcycle on the sidewalk next to the creek bank. This was documented under a different incident number of 25-COMP-0125. So that's our way of initial intake. The lieutenant that you'd spoken to spoke to the officer and documented them under this number. Then from there, Sergeant Burke reviewed the complaint because even those complaints that are put in by a different lieutenant come through professional standards. Sergeant Burke is part of the professional standards unit. He reviewed that complaint and then also spoke with Mr. Cullen and confirmed that no policy violations occurred, that it was addressed at the supervisory level. And I believe in the material that was the printout of that 025 case was in there. I did redact Mr. Cullen's name out of it. But that's how the original complaint was documented from the lieutenant, reviewed by professional police. So from there, I reviewed the complaint and obtained video from the building, the body worn camera, and determined no policy violation was violated and closed the complaint under this other INF 006 as an informal investigation. So this is this the video of the body worn camera? There's no sound. Stop right here. So next slide, and it keeps recording. There we go. So this is a screenshot of that body worn camera that we just reviewed. And what I did with this is each one of those vertical posts on that railing there, I went out and measured it with a tape measure. They're 5 feet apart. So from this screenshot, I count 1 right underneath his arm, 2 by his mirror, 3 where the cursor is, and in the next photo, we'll actually see a 4th one. Well, there's one right where that's his lights. That we have his mirror lights right where that curves down. There's another post. You can barely see it. Next one over right there. There's another post, and then Mr. Cullen's actually standing next to another post. So based on this, I estimated that he was about 20 feet from Mr. Cullen when Mr. Cullen looked and turned and saw another cyclist. Next one, and this you can see this is the next screenshot of when he's passing Mr. Cullen, and you can see by his left foot there's that extra vertical piece of the railing. And I also measured how wide the sidewalk is. At the same time, it's about 9.5 feet wide. And then looking at this video, this screenshot, if you look at the lower left-hand corner of the screenshot, you can actually see the officer's knee. And we don't see, it's just vegetation. I don't see any sidewalk there, but then you can see on the right-hand side, there's additional sidewalk. All right, next one. Part of when I reviewed this complaint, the officer had mentioned that he was checking the area for potential houseless camps. So these are 3 screenshots from that exterior camera video. And you can clearly see in his right, on the top right, his head is turned to the right or to the creek. That one and the left is a different camera angle at a different point in time. He's looking down at the creek. And then this last one, different camera angle, he's looking down at the creek. So when I'm reviewing this, I look at that as the officer said that he was riding on the sidewalk to look for potential camps. The video actually confirms that during this time, he was looking to the right towards the river, looking at camps. And then for the conclusion, as we have heard, September 9th, 2025, I advised in my determination that policy violations, the investigation would be closed. And then the day after, I mailed a conclusion letter. The day after that, Mr. Cullen came in the department and I provided a physical copy of the conclusion letter to him, which we have also read. So, questions?
Actually, if I may, thank you for your testimony. Or do we have questions on my script?
Yeah, if I was riding a motorcycle on a sidewalk, would that be a violation of the traffic code?
Yeah, they potentially.
So then if this officer is riding a motorcycle on a sidewalk, wouldn't that be a violation of the traffic code?
So we're looking at this as, or I was looking at this, is he doing this in the course of his duties? Does he have a justification for doing it? The fact that he says, yes, I was looking there for potential camps, and the video confirms that. That's the way I look at it. And in that first from Lieutenant Vigero, that CO 5 investigation, he does acknowledge, he's like, yeah, there's probably a better way I could have checked it. So that is the supervisor providing that feedback to him, saying, yeah, we had this conversation, it's been documented, it's been dealt with.
In addition to policy 703.3, do Salem Police Department officers, are they also constrained by traffic codes?
Oh, yes, of course, unless they're operating in their, with emergency vehicle lights, such as.
So when would it be appropriate to have a motor vehicle on a pedestrian path?
Like for the police,
Yes,
in the course of their duty, like, for example, sometimes if there's a call out in Wallace from the park, they may drive along the sidewalk to get out to that call for service in Wallace Point Park. Sometimes they do park checks down at the park, so they'll drive along halfway through the park to check for, you know, proactive activity. So sometimes that's a night, so, yeah.
Were there any calls to check the Mill Creek?
Not specifically for this circumstance, but I know there has been past ones. In fact, if I remember right, there was actual recent fire down there and complaints prior to this complaint.
Sure. Question, so it's unclear to me if the trespass issue.
that question here in a moment, yeah.
Okay, I do have a
You're all
question
welcome.
about trespass.
You want to focus on this for a second, since we've started the conversation about this, and then we'll transition to the scope of the complaint. Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I don't have to, I can ask the scope now, but I didn't want to interrupt your questions about this specifically.
I forgot my question at this point.
May I ask a question?
I know, unfortunately not,
I do have some questions.
about this specifically, where since we have a break, do you mind if we ask about the scope real quick?
Yeah.
For 25 INF 006, is the scope of this the incident on the actual pedestrian path itself? Or does this include that incident as well as other things that I've mentioned, like the trespass?
The investigation is the scope of the complaint and the allegation which is operating. That's the scope of the investigation. The trespass part was, it's not documented in my official memo, but some of those conversations like the letter and stuff like that are still stored under that case number. Now, there hasn't been a complaint about specifically to professional standards to look into the validity of the trespass and stuff like that, which would generate a new case number as a new incident. So, is that answer the question?
That clarifies for you, that clarifies for you.
I think so, yes. I mean, the complainant's request for redress includes addressing the trespass piece, so that's why it was unclear. I will pose my question, and you can let me know if we're on or off. I'd like to get some sense kind of frequency of the issuing of trespass for the Salem Police Headquarters.
Within
How-
the,
Yeah, is this a common practice? Is this you may not have numbers.
I wouldn't say it's a common practice, but it does happen from time to time. I don't have solid, sorry.
That's right. I'm recalling a case last year, the year before, and it also had a trespass to the Salem PD. And so I was just curious about the frequency of it and also still the scope of it.
Thank you. I'll acknowledge real quick that our role will be to either concur with or not concur with the findings, but we do have the ability to add additional thoughts. So though we'll focus on that, I think that it's all relevant to
When officers receive training in operating their motor vehicles in town, what would typically, if you have examples, that's great. What would be good reasons for officers to say drive the wrong way on a one-way road? Like in what situations would that be acceptable?
Yeah, so it's really dependent on the situation. For a person that is driving the wrong way or like fleeing from the police, they can follow them down that one way. It's not necessarily advised because I think it's really dangerous really fast. It just depends on the situation, honestly. Like if they're, and I guess for what if there's a call right around the corner, it's a pretty significant call, like police have to be there right now. Quickest way to get there, maybe it's a potential save of life or something, they're gonna drive the wrong way, so the wrong way. As long as they can do it with due regard to the public and safety in accordance with the policy.
Okay.
You asked about training, police motorcycle officers, and I don't know all the training that they received, but they received more training than just a regular police officer in a vehicle. Training, if I remember right, is a week long, they may be more, but and that's just initially to be certified as a motor officer. And the failure rate is actually pretty high for one, because it's a very strict class. There's slow speed, obstacle courses and stuff like that, so.
What are some of the differences between a motorcycle officer and an officer that's in a patrol car? Who are both on patrol?
Yeah, so our motor officers focus primarily on traffic enforcement, and they also do large scale traffic investigations if it involves death or serious physical injury, car crash. So that's their primary focus versus patrol officers. They're a little bit more subject to radio calls and the day-to-day stuff.
Do motorcycle officers and patrol officers in cars have the same classifications? Are they both officers?
Correct. Yeah. They still have the same certifications through the Department of Public Safety. So they just may have more certifications and training based on the fact that they operate a motorcycle, not just a brake.
Are there any pay impacts of operating a motorcycle? Any differentials between that specifically for motorcycles?
They do get pay incentives because of like they're on call all the time and stuff like that. So I believe there might be a that as well.
Separate from what might be for someone in the patrol car?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Officers that operate, do you have a question?
Go ahead.
Officers that operate in areas with lots of walking paths or maybe include parks, do they receive any sort of like special instruction on how to go about patrolling those, or is it kind of left up to the officer individually? Maybe their supervisor?
I can't speak to anything specific. Or typically for operating people like on a pathway, so to say. What I can speak to is probably emergency vehicle operation training does have to do with situational awareness, like vehicle placement is what we would call it. Like where do you place a vehicle within the lane if you're preparing to back up, because you know the front end is going to swing around when you back up. So there is like vehicle placement training that is department-wide for operation.
What I couldn't tell from the still shots you took of the smart plant player like surveillance video.
Yeah.
Where was the officer's emergency lights on the tail of his vehicle? No.
I think we've covered a little bit of this, but I want to ask specifically, would it be appropriate for me to drive a motorcycle down this path?
Yeah, so I mean, no, it wouldn't, but in the course of the duties with.
I'm gonna
Okay.
hold off to know was it appropriate, in your opinion, for this officer to drive a motorcycle down this path?
Yes.
And what is the difference there?
The difference is he is there for a job. Right? It's his job to, what he said is his job for, and his reason for being there is to look for potential camps along the way. So he has a specific purpose for doing it. If it was just to do it, yeah, that could be a problem. Because, or if he was just driving down the sidewalk downtown, it wasn't an articulable reason why, or a justification for why, yeah, that we would consider that a problem.
Do you know if this officer was at the end of his shift or what the purpose of returning to the police department was? And you may not know, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he was, the time of day most likely wouldn't be at the end of his shift because it was morning time. I just don't know when he gets to work. Because there's some staggered shifts with that.
Thank you.
Do other officers, typically surveil that area, I guess for unhoused people or other purposes along that sidewalk?
I don't know the day-to-day of what they would do, but I mean, control, I guess, within the. So,
How frequently are the exterior cameras monitored? They seem to have a pretty good view towards the creek. Are those monitored actively throughout the day? Are they checked around when incidents happen?
no, they're not monitored at all. Way they work is if there's motion, they're activated. And so it all comes down to a trigger, it triggers the motion to activate. They're only stored for a certain amount of time with the signal. So, yeah, they're not actively monitored.
Can those be checked in real time or only
Yeah, they can be checked.
Thank you.
And that, when it is checked in real time, it's on. It's not like it is dependent on motion or not, it's just, it's on, you can view it. It's just the recording side of it is motion active.
Board have more questions?
Did the officer make any kind of noise since the video was silent? Did he give a beep or anything before as he's pulling up on?
I don't believe so. I don't believe it was specifically asked by Lieutenant Vigilant's initial conversation with the employee. The reason the video is silent is because it was captured what we call record after the fact. So the body worn cameras are always recording, but only if they're activated does it record the audio. So, and that's only stored for a short amount of time. So that's why there's no audio to it.
We'd be able to go back to the PowerPoint for a moment and go to the policy 7003.3. So, and I know we covered this as well, but just ask specifically, in addition to follow the policy, SVD does also have an obligation to follow law of the road. Are there times where you could think that, are there the times where this policy has come into play where it has not been due regard for public safety of all persons? When it comes to taking a city vehicle for checks or things like that, has that ever come up? I guess what I'm trying to do is try to find if, not if the case like this, not what we're looking at, but like where the balance that are normal here, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of a specific incident, but thinking off the top of my head, what we talk about due regard to safety, that comes into a lot of pursuit driving, pursuit policy. And if we are pursuing after the vehicle, lights and sirens fleeing from us, we can do that, but we always have to, in the back of our head, know about the due regard of public safety. Our actions in a pursuit can't be so egregious that we do place the public in considerable danger. So that's kind of the bounds that we would look at that in like a pursuit or a vehicle driving like that. Hey, were they operating this motor vehicle with due regard to the safety of all persons? Or were they sliding around corners or squealing tires? I mean, that clearly shows that they out of control of that vehicle that's sliding around a corner. That could potentially place people in danger because they're not in control.
Excellent. Would you mind going back one more to the upper view map as well? So one question I had as well, I know that there's several controlled intersections, things like that here, but is it quicker to get to the parking lot taking that path, or is it the same amount of time as if you were to go around? Where's the entrance to the parking lot?
So in the body worn camera video, he enters up in the upper left-hand side. Up to the left a little bit, there's an entrance into the parking lot there. There's one farther down that you can't see, but then there's one right there on the right-hand side where the cursor is.
On the right-hand side where the cursor is, where he originally entered on the path. There,
Yeah, that's that entrance to the parking lot.
Thank you.
What an opportunity for rebuttal.
I don't know, but we'll find out afterwards. Couple more questions for you. I know that our hearing will be limited to either agreeing with the findings or disagreeing with the findings, just for the information around it. What circumstances would cause the Salem Police Department to trespass someone?
Regarding this circumstance.
In general, if we had a citizen coming in, what type of things might play roles?
If we've had situations where if they're causing a disturbance, or if it's the repeated coming in for the same question, even though we've been the processes for this going to this processes that we follow. So.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a Salem police policy to not apologize for things?
No.
Okay. I'm almost certain I heard that in one of the recordings you were provided, which I thought was a little surprising. Might have been from Sergeant Vidria.
Maybe Sergeant Burke. Lieutenant Vidria. Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't the question?
It was something that Mr. Poland had said that I do recall hearing in one of the audio recordings was that there's a policy to not apologize. I was a little surprised by that.
So if it is determined that he was operating within policy for a justified reason of driving up the sidewalk, then what would the apology be?
Okay.
That's rhetorical. I'm not asking the
I got
important
that.
question.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. So that's the way I would.
Were you the officer who first trespassed Mr. Colin?
Yes.
How many times had Mr. Colin been to the police station to address this particular issue before he was trespassed?
Before he was trespassed, I don't remember the specific numbers. I'd have to go through and look at the documentation, but I think that was a fair assessment, 6 to 10 times that Mr. Coleman said. I think that's probably a fair assessment.
How do you, what's the, is there a standard that the Salem police use to say, well, okay, that's enough. Now we're gonna say you can be trespassed?
I don't think there's a standard, so to say, or a guideline. I think it's just situational.
With the department has authority to trespass.
Well, as a supervisor, I do have the authority to trespass it. But also in conversations with the assistant chief, that is the legal counsel, that's the route we decided to go.
So for instance, a patrol officer couldn't just issue a trespass.
They could, like typically a supervisor would do that. I'm thinking of recent cases where people, or circumstances where people have been causing a disturbance. And it was a supervisor and officer that said that, said, hey, listen, you're causing a disturbance. You need to leave. And the person left, but it was getting to that point where they would have been trespassed, yeah.
Okay.
So
Would you have characterized Mr. Coleman's visits to Salem PD as was he causing a disturbance during these visits?
not at all. Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Could you cite a particular reason why he was trespassed? Was it the amount of time?
It was the amount of time, the time taking up of the staff members kind of asking questions or inquiring about this investigation. It's really been already provided to in written and verbal form.
Okay. This is a pretty specific question. After the informal investigation had been closed by you, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. After you had made that closure, how many times after that did you interact with Mr. Coleman at Salem PD?
Yeah, I would have to go back and look.
Okay.
At the documents. That was out. Yeah. I was focused on this investigation.
What factors go into determinations of who can do a ride along with the Salem Police Department?
There's several guidelines, criminal history checks, whether they live within the city or outside of the city limits. Various things.
Who reviews the applications, makes a determination on them?
Yeah, so applications come in, we have a staff assistant that works in the control section who is all, as a guideline that goes by. And he's the one that sends out letters or makes phone calls or notifies people. Or it's scheduled.
Just to be clear, there isn't necessarily a set standard in writing about at what point you would trespass a citizen. It's sort of case by case, according to somebody that holds some sort of supervisory position. It would typically be run through them.
Generally through supervisors.
Okay.
And in your role in this case, were you viewing the motorcycle officers' actions as compared to the SPD policies, and then just communicating that result of the investigation to Mr. Colon?
Yes.
Okay, and then, so I guess I'm trying to figure out why you trespassed him as opposed to like someone else.
Yeah, so what we found was several different people were being contacted and spoken to, and we wanted a consistent message. So therefore, it was determined that I would be the liaison on that consistent message.
And is there a policy for members of the community to be able to talk to the chief?
Policy, so
Or
to say.
procedure or something that,
Generally speaking, no, community members don't get a direct access to the chief.
sure. It sounded like one of Mr. Colin's grievances was he just wanted to talk to the chief and was told no.
Correct.
So there's no way for just regular citizens to talk to the chief directly and like unless they run into him in the community or something like that.
No, I believe he's on different boards and stuff like that. Commissions, sorry, different boards has other review boards that he communicates with. I think with this one, part of the grievance was I wanted to make sure the chief was aware. The chief was clearly aware of the situation. I talked to him and the assistant chief about the situation. So,
Do you know if Mr. Colin was ever given information about that initial kind of determination where it appeared that the motorcycle officer said, oh, you know, I should have done that, or I'll do something different in the future? Was that ever communicated to Mr. Colin?
I believe so. Well, yes, for sure, because there is a recording from Lieutenant Bedro who called Mr. Colin back and said, this is what I found, this is what occurred, and this is what has happened with that. The officer said it, he talked about, yeah, but it could have been a better way to check that out.
Did Mr. Colin come to the police stations to discuss other matters or complain about other things after he was trespassed?
Not to file a complaint, no. There was other things that, like the tour, the ride along form. That's a separate issue. Totally okay.
Is the policy you showed as an example in the slides, is that who creates those policies?
We just went through redoing the policy, but several people have input on creating that policy. The policy has been the Salem Police Department policy on motor vehicle usage has been a very long time. But we recently, within the last, I guess it's probably 2 years, year and a half, went through all the policies, went to a new system. In that process, it was reviewed by, there was lieutenant, deputy chief, professional staff, supervisors. It was a board of people that reviewed the policies And then from there, it actually gets reviewed through all the deputy chiefs up to the chief until it actually gets published now. So,
So it's internally created. Then
yes,
Okay.
yes, so.
Did the complainant receive any trespass letters as a result of requests for ride along or requests for a tour?
No.
Are you aware of what coaching the officer received as a part of the initial intake?
Yeah, I believe I quoted it on one of the slides of that one, that it was how it was documented.
It's that one there.
So the coaching and counseling would have been, he acknowledged that he could have checked the area differently rather than riding his motorcycle on the sidewalk. And I took that straight out of that documentation from the 012.
So he acknowledged that he could check the area differently, but it was not a violation of policy 703.3.
Correct.
And the difference between what would make it, what made it appropriate or would have been inappropriate to use your motorcycle on the pedestrian path was that when asked about it, he said that he was checking for fire watch.
But
Or-
not, just for hustle scams.
Yes.
So yes, that was his justification for doing it.
And if it wasn't for that, it would not have been appropriate, but just that in itself makes it appropriate to ride your motorcycle on a pedestrian path.
After this conversation was had with Officer Hardy, was there any communication with, I assume that there's a section that handles the motorcycle unit? That's sort of,
That's the supervisor.
yeah, supervisor that handles that. Was there any sort of conversation with him about like, if this wasn't the way to do it, perhaps park and walk? Was there any sort of conversation had about that, or is it just he acknowledged that and it was kind of the end of that?
Farther in the documentation of that, I believe it's sort of documented, he confirmed that his supervisor talked about it, but it's not, the specifics are not like how that conversation.
We go back to 703.3. So to regard for safety of all persons operating a vehicle, what were some of the factors that you reviewed in regards to that do safety being met?
Yeah, so looking at the speed of the video, it's hard to determine how fast he was going. It's a fisheye view. In the frame rates, there's all sorts of different things hard to determine. But the width of the sidewalk, the distance of the sidewalk from when Mr. Coleman initially looked at the motorcycle, those are all factors that I was looking at. And then later on a side conversation that I had with the employee saying, hey, this is coming to the community police review board. Here's your documentation. He just, I guess, other than saying he just said it, he said I was going less than 5 miles an hour. But that's not in my report because it's after the investigation. So just that's what he told me. But I can't confirm that. I don't know how fast he's going, given what videos like that are. It didn't appear to be like he was going excessively fast.
And were there any other factors that you considered in weighing whether or not it was to regard other than speed?
The width of the sidewalk, the distance, and the speed. I believe that's about it.
I think one thing that I'm having trouble with is when we're reviewing that what made this appropriate was that there was a reasonable purpose as a police officer to be there. It feels like if you need to take a statement from the guy at 7-Eleven, you could wheel your motorcycle in there too, but that also wouldn't be appropriate just because you have a reason to be there as a police officer. I guess I have a question there, but I won't. I take that back. I'll take that filter.
For one, he's going to be stating the fact.
Not right now, thank you, no. Sorry, board have any more questions? Calvin, thank you. I appreciate your time today. Is Before we totally move on, I want to get some clarification from our staff and our city attorney in regards to, there was a question about whether or not additional questions can be asked by the complainants in general. Are you prepared to speak to that, or do you want to ask?
Prepared to, Nathan's welcome to chime in too. We do not have an opportunity for rebuttal or additional statements. We do have plenty of opportunity for board members to ask additional questions of either party. So should any of you have further questions for Mr. Colin to the extent you're willing to answer, that's fine to continue with questions to either group.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Before you do ask questions, can I ask, Mr. Colin, do you agree that your statement to be true and honest? Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Colin, what is it you want to say?
If you could go back to the video or the still of the overhead view of the scene.
Just take it.
Okay, sorry about that. And actually the motorcycle entering onto the sidewalk. Okay, actually right where the crosshairs are and what would be the east side of the building, there's an entrance there to the parking structure as well. Steve can confirm that. But now if you go to the video of him coming off of Liberty and turning onto the sidewalk for a second. And then pause it just as he starts his turn. There. There's a barrier. That door doesn't operate. At that time, that door was out of commission. And somebody had asked, did he take that path because it was more expedient? In this case, I think the answer is obvious.
Rich Colin, does anyone have questions for Rich Colin? Colin, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm tripping on it right now. But the board have any more questions for Lieutenant Galvin?
Sure. Is there anything that you would like to add, based? Well, then can you enter either of those garage doors?
The right and left, the left one is, it's activated from the inside only. Now, if it's open, then yes, you can drive in there, it's double wide, but most entrances, well, people from this way, they only enter through that right door, because that's where the sensor is.
Okay.
Conversely, on the inside, the right door doesn't. Inside, the left door doesn't open.
And so, based on this still that we have of the video and the little instruction codes that we can see, and then whatever else that is.
Yeah.
What does that signify for that?
Yeah, so oftentimes those doors break or they go down. So that's how they say, you probably couldn't have gone through that door. It's probably like not operating. That's why that stuff is up there.
Okay.
Lieutenant Galvin, do we keep record of the GPS locations of our vehicles? And do these still exist for this time?
The motorcycles do not, the patrol cars.
Does the board have any more questions? Excellent, for either party. Thank you. Well, I thank you everyone involved for seeing the hearing. I appreciate you participating in the public portion. The public portion of the meeting will be closed now, and we will dismiss the members of the public and move to an executive session to deliberate.
So that means Chris is gonna turn off the YouTube, Lieutenant Galvin and Mr. Colin. You can stay outside as long as I can see you, because I can't,
Right.
the library is closed, so I can't have you go and browse in the material. But if you'd like to stay until we come back into the public portion, you can, or I can give you a call in the morning with the date.
I'll say.